The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out to this workshop. I really appreciate you all coming out to this. Wanting to, learn about publishing no matter where you are in the process. So we'll get started. Welcome again, I guess. You're taking the first steps in writing and publishing, which is half the battle. I tell people when they're starting to write books, wherever you are in the process, half the battle is actually saying you're going to do it, putting yourself out there and, figuring out how to do the publication. Because I know a lot of people who talk about wanting to write a book and, but they don't know where to begin. So knowing where to begin is half the battle. So you're taking a great first step on this. So a little bit of an introduction, as the title card said. My name is Tanner Walling. I'm originally from Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, about an hour away from here, next to Worcester. Maybe asking yourself, what are my qualifications? Why is me specifically teaching you about publishing? So I am the 5 times Amazon bestselling author of the Fury of the Storm Adventures series. They're middle grade disaster thrillers, so for about grades 3 through 7, targeted at getting young, reluctant readers, often young boys who don't want to read, into reading with action-packed stories. Since the publication of that first book, I've sold hundreds of copies around the world. I've been publishing for 8 years and writing for almost 10. Hard to believe it's been a decade this year. But I'm also a senior at Stonehill College right down the street. So I'm double majoring in communication and history. And this is also for my capstone. So another reason I'm very appreciative you're all here for that. It's because this is a big thing for my graduation requirements as well. So without further ado, we'll get into it with a little activity. I like to get people started on thinking about the state of publishing and the state of independent publishing by kind of giving some context on what the distribution between traditional and indie publishers are like right now. So all 3 of these questions will be out of the top 100 bestsellers. So we'll start off with this. So for one of the biggest genres, mystery, thriller, and suspense, how much of the top 100 best-selling novels in that genre do you think are indie? Any guesses from the 4 I have up on screen?
39.
39?
I'll go 52.
52? 17? 17? So the answer was A. It will go up from here, but the answer was A for this one. It's 11% of the top 100 bestsellers in the thriller genre and mystery genre are indie published. 5 are small and medium publishers. 16% is Amazon, which they have their own publishing house now. So they've kind of been creeping into the publishing space because they own one of the biggest book-selling platforms. And then the big 5, so that's like Penguin Random House, Simon & Schuster, all of them are 68%. So the good news here is, though, even though this is the lowest out of the biggest genres in publishing, the lowest percentage of indie novels in the top 100, that's still 10% of the top 100 best-selling novels. Not just top, 11% of all mysteries and thrillers, of what's really selling a lot of copies, 11% of that is indie. So that's very good news for indie authors. Now for fantasy and romance are both the same percentage. So anyone want to take a swing at what it's going to be for fantasy and romance? 49? 49 as well?
21.
21?
21 is what I was going to say.
So this one is 49%, so you guys got it back there. So close to half of the best-selling novels in both the fantasy and romance genres are independently published. The breakdown specifically for fantasy, small and medium has 7%, Amazon has 7%, and the big 5 has 37%. And then just like fantasy, for romance, 49% of the top 100 romance novels are indie, 11% are small and medium publishers, 9% are Amazon, and 30% are the big five and Harley Quinn, which is one of the big romance publishers. So with this, that's great news for anyone in those genres that, half of the industry of romance novels and fantasy novels is dominated by indies, which I think is a really great thing for people starting out their writing careers, is that it's no longer like it used to be where the big publishers were gatekeeping what could and could not be published. Half of what's being published in these genres and what's really selling the most copies is done by independent authors, and that's taking out small and medium like publishers that typically would be called indie publishers. So 49% of that is just all people who are just like you and I, people writing books day to day and not having a big publishing house or even a small publishing house behind them. And so then we have, last but not least, the sci-fi genre. So this is going to be the highest of them all. I'll give you a hint there, but any guesses at what sci-fi's market share is going to be? 56?
56.
56? Correct answer. So it is 56% for sci-fi, 7% small medium, 5% Amazon, so even smaller market share Amazon has, and then 30% for the big five plus Bain, which is another large sci-fi publishing house. So this is really good news for authors in this genre too, because over half of the novels being published in science fiction and the top 100 bestsellers are science fiction, which is very good news for indie authors because that means you don't have to have a publishing house behind you to sell anymore. I know there's a lot of, and I'll dive into it more throughout the presentation, but a lot of people I know are sometimes hesitant about going indie because they're like, will I sell? Will these books sell? Can I sell without a big publishing house behind me? But the really great news is that on the Amazon bestseller lists, 56% for sci-fi, 49% for romance and fantasy are indie publishers. So the takeaways from this, going indie is far more common than ever before. Independent publishing has really disrupted the publishing space and the publishing industry in the space of just about a decade and a half since it started in the early 2010s. And so out of the four biggest genres, 3 of them are majority dominated by indie authors. And like I said, it's the share of the bestseller, so not just the whole market. So of what's really selling, independent authors are really selling big time, and that's great news for anyone who wants to do indie publishing, because not only does it mean that your books can sell, but it means that more voices are getting out there, and that the publishing houses, while they may know what they're doing in some cases, they may not have certain voices that, they have certain blind spots, and indie publishing is showing that with how much it dominates certain of these spaces. So with that, we'll jump right into an introduction to the industry, see indie and traditional, what the differences and similarities are. So traditional publishing, like I mentioned before, this is right there is the big five. So that's Hachette, Simon & Schuster, Macmillan, Penguin Random House, and HarperCollins. So those are the big 5 publishers that a lot of, big authors you've seen out there, James Patterson, Lee Child, Nora Roberts, like they have deals with these big 5 publishing houses. Things are starting to change, which I'll get into a bit more. But the process with these is it's different than indie publishing. So with traditional publishing, your book will go through a publisher. You'll get an agent. You'll be querying, so sending your manuscript to publishing companies, publishing houses, seeing who takes the bait. You may have to send off to several dozen before you hear anything. But in that case, let's just say the manuscript gets accepted by the publishing house. There are some things to keep in mind with traditional publishing. I'll start with the pros and then I'll say the cons. So the pros with the traditional publishing houses are they've got connections. That is the one undeniable thing they have and they will always have, is that they are established publishing houses with teams of editors and executives. They've got connections in the movie industry. They've got connections in a lot of places. However, that is where their advantages have started to wane in recent years. So the way they do payouts, so here I say monetary advance, then about 10% royalties. So what happens when you get the book deal? Typically they'll give you an advance. Sometimes it's a couple $1,000s, sometimes it's tens of thousands of dollars. There's been authors that have gone up into hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that looks great on paper, you're getting that money. However, that comes with a big if, that comes with a big but. With that, once you get that advance, you will not see another penny until you make back that advance. So if your book, say you get a $50,000 advance, let's just use like a small, like a number like that. Your book, you won't see another cent from that book until it makes the publisher $50,000 again, and then that's when you'll start making royalties. And when you do make royalties, it's only about 10%, give or take, depending on the publishing house, because with that you've got to think they have to pay the graphic designers, the interior designers, the editors who they have as like permanent staff and not freelancers, the publishing executives, everyone who works in the publishing house. So by the time they take their cut to pay everyone, and the distributors like Barnes & Noble and Amazon take their cut, at the end of the day, by the time you would see the money, you'd be making 10% royalties if you make back that advance. The other thing is that time to market is a lot slower with traditional publishing. It's typically once you get the book deal to publication, it's 2 years to market, because they want to take in, oh, that just disappeared. Give me a second. Oh, yeah. Awesome, thank you. But it's 2 years to market, so once you get that book deal, it's probably going to be another 2 years until the book actually is published in full, because they take a lot of time to go through their kind of like system and everything. It just really takes a long time to get it published. So if you have something very timely, if you're writing, maybe something very contemporary and important to a certain moment, may not be the best way to go for traditional publishing. But with all of that said, they do make, if you're not entrepreneurially minded, if you're not have certain creative assets outside of that, they do provide a lot of the other things. So like they will take care of the graphic design of your cover, they will format your interior of your book, they will provide editors for that. You won't have to pay a penny. That's another thing with in publishing in general, is that I'll get more into that later, but you never should have to pay for the actual publication of a book. With traditional publishing, you do not have to pay. So there are some pros in that they do have connections in certain places like bookstores or like the movie industry. However, for the average author who's not getting a movie deal, which not many, authors in general, even though biggest authors, their movies are taking a long time to come out. For the average person, traditional publishing is starting to lose its advantages, which brings us to indie publishing, and also known as independent or self-publishing. So Kindle Direct Publishing, I have this up here because they're probably the biggest in the space right now. There's Smashwords also and Draft2 Digital if you're publishing other ebooks outside of Amazon. But for people just starting, majority of your sales will be on Amazon. So I always say start with Kindle Direct Publishing, which I will get into later in the workshop segment of this. But with indie publishing, you go through a distributor. So there's no one checking or reading over your work. There's no gatekeeper saying you can publish this, you can't publish this, we're looking for this, we're looking for that. You can publish it. So you go through a distributor like KDP, as it's frequently referred to, and then they'll send it out to stores. So whether that's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iBooks, Kobo, the other million stores out there, that's how that would work. A difference from the traditional publishing industry, you get no advance. So there's no money offered to you right away because, like I said, everyone can publish. However, you get a much larger royalty cut. On print books, it's 60% with KDP. And on ebooks, if you're pricing between $2.99 and $9.99, is 70%. So once they take out the print cost fees, you're making 60 to 70% of the royalties on that book. So if you're selling a book for $5 on Kindle, and there's no print cost because it's just delivering right to your Kindle or your phone or your iPad or whatnot, you're seeing 70% of that money, which is really great because if your books take off, you're making a whole lot of money. And you make a whole lot more money initially when you sell books, which is really great. With paperback, it's a little bit different because they have to, there's printing costs. But how they do that and they manage that is it's print on demand. So they don't keep a warehouse of books filled. Like they do print runs in the traditional publishing industry, so they might do like 10,000 books, 20,000 books, or whatnot. Here, they don't have to worry about that. And so when when Amazon gets a, oh, I want to order, say, like one of my books. They say that, oh, someone wants to, buy Fury of the Storm. Okay, they go into their warehouses, they print it on the spot, on demand, hence the name, and then they ship it. So that allows anyone to publish while, making sure Amazon doesn't have massive warehouses full of books. So it's good for them, it's good for you, it's good for everyone. And another thing, you can publish as soon as you're done with your book. The to-market time is pretty much zero. Once you have your cover in and your books, your manuscript in, and all the book description title parts filled out, your book can be out on the market within a matter of days to a week or so. You can say, so typically I set things to pre-order, but it pretty much, I let it go again. Your time to market is very quick, so you can publish as soon as you're done, which is also really great. Another thing is key difference is freelance editors or doing things yourself. So not having a publisher behind you, typically you have to either do things yourself or find someone else to do it. So with editing, a lot of people do freelance editors. There's a lot of websites out there. Fiverr is one of them. I think Upwork is another. There's a lot of different places. There's another one that I'll show later, a tool that I use to format my interior called Readsy, that they also have a marketplace of different freelancers who can help with that. Or you can do things yourself. So like I edit my books myself. Cover design, I have covered by my brother. He's a graphic designer. He has a graphic design business, so I really lucked out on that. But it's a matter of you do have to arrange for it yourself. But the nice thing, like I said, is there's not to worry about so much of your money going to pay other people. You just pay the fee for the cover to be designed or for the editing to happen, and then done. So it's not like there's the publishing houses where they're taking so much out of every book to pay their full-time staff. And then typically I say when you're starting out, only worry about Kindle Direct Publishing. It's still what I use most to this day because it's where I've made most of my sales. Amazon's just such a juggernaut in the book sales space, and with their expanded distribution, they sell to Barnes & Noble and Walmart, Ape Books, a whole bunch of others. So indie publishing definitely has some pros. Definitely there's some cons in the sense of things that traditional publishing has that indie does not. But in my opinion, indie publishing is vastly more. You have vastly more creative control. And then last but not least, there's a thing called boutique publishers. Like I said in all caps there, that's a no-go. With those, you pay to have your book published, but don't do this option. You should never have to pay for the publication of your book. You may have to, if you're doing indie publishing, pay for your copy, like your proof copy or the cover designer. Traditional publishing, you should never pay. But if someone's saying, we'll publish your book, pay us, X many hundreds or thousands of dollars, do not do that. They've started to kind of go away, but there's some still out there taking advantage of people. But you should never pay a fee for a publication of a book. So if you see anyone doing that, that's a no-go. Don't do it. They're just looking to take advantage of people who don't want to do that because they won't help market your books and such. So takeaways from this, as asking yourself what's important to you when it comes to publishing. Many authors out there do find an agent and query and find a traditional publisher because they want that publishing house behind them. But just as many authors, as we saw from the activity at the beginning, are publishing independently. They're retaining more freedom because there's no publishing house telling them what to say or not to say. They're getting more money and rights to what they're writing. So even the biggest novels, authors in the traditional publishing industry have told stories about being forced to shoehorn things in. So The Hunger Games, for example, dystopian classic, modern classic. But Suzanne Collins, the author, talked about how she had to shoehorn in the love triangle between the main characters because the publishers were like, well, I don't know if a televised deathmatch dystopia novel is going to sell. Put some romance in there. And she was like, all right. And she made it work because she's a literary genius. But publishing houses will ask you to do things like that. And your manuscript may look different than what you at first intended to write because the publishing houses have an idea of what sells historically for them, so they'll want you to do something similar. So you do retain more creative freedom. So for me, I chose independent publishing because I'm not publishing in line with industry trends. My books aren't in a huge selling genre with that, there's a big trend in the industry. But, I really, from the way I grew up with, I was kind of in a town with not much to do, so I was kind of always just wanting stuff to do. And so for me, I had that work ethic and that drive to, publish and promote my own work. But I get some people are a bit more on the creative side and not as much on the quote unquote businessy side. So it's really asking yourself what's important to you. But typically I recommend people to go independent publishing because it's very pro people in a sense. You retain, your rights, you're making more money, etc. So with the look at the industry, I'll dive into my journey as an indie author from 2014 to today. So that's a picture of me looking a lot different, a lot younger. So I started writing. I actually wasn't considering myself a writer type at first. In elementary school, I was told I knew what I wanted to say. I just didn't know how to say it. So I said, all right, that's code for I can't write. So I decided I wasn't going to write then and there. So I started doing things with science. I was programming growing up. I was doing all of that. And then I always wanted to make a website, and so I made a website, and I was like, well, I love science. I'll explain science for other people, make it easier to understand for them. And so I made a science website, and that went well. But with that, I was writing articles, so I slowly got back into writing and publishing them online on my website. And then, so I was focused on programming and science for so long. My website started to get me back into that. And then I started writing fiction again in the 7th grade. Kind of a funny story to this. So I was, the way they had it structured in our school was you kind of got moved around to different sections of different classes every year. And so I had, had plenty of friends beforehand. Then they call it teams. Team I got moved on to, I did not have many friends. I had to start from the ground up. And so one day at lunch, I couldn't find any of my friends, and I was like, "Oh, there's that guy Jack from my Spanish class. I'm gonna go up to him and see if I can sit with him and his friends." So I walked over and I said, "Hey Jack, can I sit with you?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." So I sat down with them and I'm chatting. I'm getting to know them. A lot of them are my closest friends to this day, which is the funny full circle part of that. But I remember one of them asked what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? And I wasn't thinking. I was just trying to fit in 7th grade, and I was like, oh yeah, I write books. I had done 3 chapters a year prior and hadn't touched it. So they were like, whoa, you write books? No way, what are you writing about? And then asking me all these questions, and I'm telling them, and then I'm thinking to myself, oh shoot, I got to put my money where my mouth is, because I'm not a hypocrite. I got to really show I'm actually doing this. And so I started writing again. And with that motivation, I just kept writing, and I kept writing, and I was like, wait, I had a knack for this. I really enjoy this. And then, finished writing that book. And eventually it was published in 2016, which was February of my 8th grade year. And so the takeaways from this, lots of self-learning. I had to, go online, just do a whole lot of reading. I didn't have a publishing house behind me. I didn't have a workshop like this to let me know the, tricks of the trade. I was kind of flying blind. So I was on, searching on Google a lot, pouring through writing and publishing blogs, trying to figure it all out, but still managed to publish without the tools I have now. And then the other key thing, the more you write, publish, and market, the better you get. You learn from your mistakes. You learn what worked. You learn what didn't work. And yeah, so everyone's got their humble beginnings, and these are mine. That picture's I screenshotted from a video of me opening the first ever copy of my book in print. So 13-year-old Tanner was very excited in that video. So then the road to book 2, as you can see, the cover design did a major upgrade because my brother by this point had become a graphic designer, so he had done that. But my second book in the series, which is in the same series titled Aftershock, wouldn't be published for another 4 years. So the big question is, what happened in that time? High school. So I had a lot of classes. I was doing honors and AP classes. Doing sports, I was a varsity rower, I was a track athlete, I did student council, I was doing Model United Nations. So I was very busy with school, so it wasn't trying to find the time as much for it. But during that time, I had other projects that did teach me quite a lot. I had a short story called Masquerade that I published with Pronoun, which was Macmillan's attempt to get into the indie publishing space. They basically made Kindle Direct Publishing, but through them, and so I used that for a bit. It allowed me to give my book away for free. Well, it's actually a short story, I should say, and get that out there. And then I went back to KDP once Pronoun closed its doors, and I did a thriller novelette called Shatterpoint as just a free giveaway. So what I learned from that was, a big advice early in the self-publishing days was give your book away for free. It'll get lots of people into the series quicker, more people will come into the series or buy your works, and it'll carry over. I found it didn't really. The thing is that so many people started doing that, the market got oversaturated, and now people aren't doing it so much anymore because well, if people are doing it, it's just not working as much, and you're not seeing that carry over. So even though these years were not filled with publishing my new books, definitely learned a lot from that. And then my second book actually came about because of COVID. I've been writing all these years, I've been editing it, but I hadn't been carving out that time to get it done. And when the lockdown hit in March of my senior year, in 2020, can't believe that was 4 years ago now, that actually gave me the time to just sit and focus and get it done. So the takeaway from that is if you don't make the time for writing and publishing, you won't finish your project. I think is one of the unfortunate things. Life has got a habit of getting in the way. So many things are happening. But if you make time for writing and publishing, you can get it out there. And so for me, it was a matter of finding that time amidst my schedule to get it out there because it was something that really mattered to me. And then the other takeaway from the road to the second book was free can build an audience, but definitely paid is the way to go, especially with how many hours you're spending writing your books. And then college years to today. So with the publication of my second book, my advertising increased dramatically. Before, I kind of just put them up there and let the algorithm do its thing. Problem is, now there's a lot of self-published books out there, so as the years go on, so Amazon's algorithm is a lot more picky, so it wasn't pushing books the same way it used to, so you have to advertise. So for me, I chose Amazon ads over Facebook ads. To put a long story short with that, it's mainly because Amazon's a captive audience. When you're doing ads and you're advertising, you can pick like, oh, I want to advertise on this book, this book, this book, and this book, or like this author and this author. It's great because people who are already searching on Amazon, they're a hot audience, as they call them, as opposed to a cold audience. So people are already on Amazon. They're a captive audience. They're looking for books. They're shopping for books. So they're much more likely to click on your book and buy your book, which is why I chose Amazon. Facebook has also been great for a lot of authors. I haven't used it as much. Like I said, that's a cold audience. So it's people who, you're on Facebook, you're looking at like, your friends, your family, other videos it puts on your feed. So you're not actively looking to buy books. So it's a harder click through and sell. But if you're using it to, get your name out there and get more awareness, it's a great tool. But I typically use Amazon. But at the end of the day, it's knowing your target audience, right? So ebooks, typically the industry wisdom has been that they sell higher. But for me, paperback has sold better. And it's all about knowing your audience. So for me, my books are for, upper elementary, middle school kids. So they're not really on a Kindle, or they're not, on an iPad reading. They typically are like having a book out. Their parents want them to read like a physical book, or it's in the classroom. So for me, I said, well, these kids are going to be reading paperback. I'm going to advertise my paperbacks, and that's been the case. And then another thing I learned from this is that series do help sell more than standalones. So the more installments I published in my series, the more my series sold. And this is kind of goes for pretty much most books, is because if someone likes your book, then if they buy one book, that's just one book. But if you've ever seen those like mystery series that are like 15, 20 books long, that's a smart publishing strategy, because oftentimes their readers will read one and then they'll say, oh, I really like this, and they'll go buy like the next one and the next one and the next one. So suddenly one sale from one person becomes, 5 sales, 10 sales, 15 sales from that person. So series do help sell more than standalones. But at the same time, there is the law of diminishing returns. So I've also seen this happen at the same time as series has helped sell my books. I've also seen the law of diminishing returns. So the more books I've done in my series, with my series being more not like a mystery series where you can pick up any one of them and it's more like a full storyline, the later books will sell less than the first book, because people will generally go back to that first book and buy it. So it does mean that your sales of your first book are going to be exponentially higher than the others sometimes. But it really, again, is about knowing your audience. Like I said, series is great for like romance and thrillers, for example, but not so much for like literary fiction or nonfiction, unless your nonfiction's like in a history of series sort of thing. So for me, that's my takeaways, the things I learned from this segment of publishing in college. So my third book, Vortex Core, was published in 2022 during my sophomore year, and Lost Horizons published this past October during part of my senior year. And then I put it together in a box set. So that's me in my college's admissions office next to the student spotlight with my book. So those are just some of the lessons I learned. So the takeaways generally, well, that's my whole series right there. But the takeaways is that indie publishing is disrupting the book industry, really like nothing else, like we saw with those statistics. Anyone can get out there and publish. I always tell people, I'm nothing special. I was, my mom's a teacher, my dad's an accountant. I had no connections in the book industry, in the publishing industry. I wasn't told from a young age I was this prodigious writer. Like I told you, I was more into the sciences at first. So if I tell people, if I can do it, you absolutely can do it. Don't follow conventional wisdom. I said my book series shouldn't have sold, but it did. Basically, what I mean by that is I'm writing middle grade novels, which are the lowest selling age range in general, but also the lowest selling online because Scholastic owns so much of that market space. And I'm also writing disaster thrillers, which there's only really one other big series in that space. So it's not something there's a big trend of people reading and buying. But they still sold because I knew my target audience. I said, I know these people are out there. And especially once I started getting into classrooms and getting the books to there and seeing the kids really enjoyed it. It's really about knowing that you have a target audience as opposed to whatever conventional wisdom is out there. Publishers will, and the other thing is publishers expect you to market yourself anyways these days because marketing is supposed to be authentic and author-driven or musician-driven or whatever industry it is. Anyways, so I always say you might as well keep most of the money and go indie because you're going to have to do the publishing either way. And it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of reward. I've been at it for all these years, but I have to say it's been one of the most exciting and rewarding things of my life so far. I know it's only been 22 years, so not that long, but it's definitely worth all of the work that you put in. So this is the workshop section. I'm gonna, like I said, I didn't have any mentor or anything to tell me the tools of the trade and the different websites to use and everything when I was starting out with publishing. So if you've got a laptop or computer on you, feel free to take that out. If you don't have one, you can feel free to follow along. I'll project it on here. But I'll just walk through 3 tools that I typically use I wish I knew when I was starting to, or that I was using when I was starting to, help you start publishing your books. So what tools do I use? Like I said, world of independent publishing can be pretty daunting at first, so much to do, so many ways to do it. But I'll walk through 3. I'll walk through Kindle Direct Publishing for distribution. I'll walk through Reezy for interior formatting, and I'll walk through Canva for cover design. So Kindle Direct Publishing, which you can find at kdp.amazon.com, often gets referred to as KDP to put it short. This is Amazon's self-publishing platform. With them, you can publish in paperback, hardcover, and ebook/Kindle, so you can really get every format of your book published, which is really great. They have another thing for publishing audiobooks, but that's separate, but I'll just focus on this today. And if you price your book between, like I mentioned before, $2.99 and $9.99, royalties are 70% on Kindle, 60% on paperback. Paperback doesn't follow those same $2.99 and $9.99 rules. Their expanded distribution, you get a little less of a cut because Barnes & Noble, for example, has to take their money out of it too, but you still make 30% if you do expanded distribution as well, which will send your book out to Barnes & Noble and more. And then they also have a thing called KDP Select. So basically, it's a 90-day, and it renews every 90 days, exclusivity agreement. And you say, as long as your Kindle book is only available on Kindle and no other stores, they'll give you more royalties in certain foreign markets. They'll give you some promotional tools to do sales of your books that aren't available to other authors. So I'll walk through that. Let me just press escape there. So this, when you log in to Kindle Direct Publishing, this is what your dashboard will look like. So this is what mine looks like. You can see there's my box set, 4th book, 3rd book, 2nd book, 1st book. So what it looks like, I'll start a new title so you can see what it looks like. So you'd press create right here. Very easy to do right there. Just makes it very easy to find. So you'll have a couple options here. Depending on what you want to publish, it's very similar most ways. But I'll start with Kindle. So you click create ebook, And then it's really just a matter of filling in everything. So I'll use a book that I'm working on right now. It's a science fiction novel. So for your book title, just put it in there. My books were called Red Horizon. I'd add it to a series. You have to create a series page. But it's just a matter of saying, this is the book series. This is the number it is in the series. Primary author, that's just you. So in my case, I'm putting Tanner Walling. Contributors, you can credit anyone else. Description, this is where you would put your book's description, just saying like a bit of the plot, who's it, for what fans is it of. So for me, I'd say, for, fans of Neil Shusterman, Dune, Star Wars, some of my other influences. But you have 4,000 characters to get your description in there, which is great. And then you'd click I own the copyright and hold the necessary publishing rights, unless you're republishing something in the public domain, but seeing as you all are writers, you're not going to be probably doing that. So you'd press I own the copyright. You'd probably press no on this one. And then reading age, if you're writing for kids, that's where you pick the minimum, maximum reading age. In my case, it's a young adult novel, so I'd do 13 to 18 plus. And then choose categories is one of the bigger ones. So you have an option to place your book in any number of genres on Amazon. Oop, that moved. So with this, it's just a matter of pretty much going through and checking off what you want. So for example, I'm going to scroll down to teen and young adult because that's what I'm writing. Then you'd go subcategory. So in my case, it's a science fiction epic. So I'd go to science fiction. And then subcategory, science fiction within sci-fi fantasy. And then I check it off. So seeing this as a sci-fi epic and space opera is the other word for that, I check that. Oh, I didn't check that. Now I checked it. So then you'd see that added as one of your genres. You can do 3 genres when you're publishing. So in my case, I'd also add dystopian because there's dystopian elements, and then maybe action and adventure because there's quite a bit of that in it. And then you just hit save categories, and it's locked in right there. Then keywords, you can do pretty much any keywords you want. A little bit of a cheat code that I have for doing that. If you go to Amazon and just search right here, like teen, sci-fi, it'll automatically fill the top entries so what are people looking for? So teen sci-fi book series is one of them. I could put that in as a keyword. So that's a quick way to find some keywords for your book, just so you can think creatively. And then down here where it says I'm ready to release the book now or pre-order, you can do that. If I selected pre-order, you could just go and select pretty much any time you want for it to pre-order. I typically just leave it as release this now. I have to enter a description. I'll put a period and trick it. There we go. And it'll say done. That'll bring you to here. Here you would upload your manuscript. I'll show a tool for formatting your manuscript in your interior. Then for your ebook cover, you would put your ebook cover there. When you're publishing, and if you're doing ebook and print, you'd want to have 2 separate ones because the ebook cover will look kind of just like the normal book cover you think of with a book cover. And then the paperback or hardcover one, it'll look a bit odd. It'll be like the back cover, the spine, and then the front cover in that like left to right order. So that is something to consider when creating. They do have a cover creator that you can use, which makes it pretty simple and easy to do that. And then you check no on AI generated content if you don't have to worry about that. It lets you preview it. And then I would have to upload a manuscript, but from then you pretty much just put in how much you want to charge for your book, you hit publish, and then it's done. It's quite literally, once you have all of your things together, that simple and easy to publish. So pretty much fill in everything it asks for you, and your book will be out there and published. In paperback, it's a very similar experience. And what you would do, see I have this right here with Kindle, I can press create paperback, and then it'll automatically carry over everything that I did and link it so that when you hit publish, you won't have 2 separate pages on Amazon. It'll have it so it looks like, give me a second. It'll have it so it looks like this, where you have, Kindle and then paperback on the same page. So you can hit paperback and it'll keep you on the same page, same book. So it's very handy. So do you guys have any questions on KDP before I move to the other tools?
So Amazon will provide you with the ISBN number, then you have to bring that in there and put it on there.
So the paperback, they do give you an ISBN, which is the only one that needs an ISBN to publish. Ebooks don't need an ISBN, so it just says optional, so you don't have to worry about that. I don't do an ISBN for ebooks, but if you are publishing on paperback, they will give you a free ISBN, so you don't have to worry about purchasing one, which is really good because they're something like a couple $100. So yeah, you won't have to worry about that. They'll give you one.
What is an ISBN?
So ISBN's like a 13-digit code. It's at the end of the book. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Oh, yes.
That's an ISBN. Yeah, they're typically, if I had a copy of my book on me, I'd show. What did you say?
Why do we need that?
That's just something that they'll have on the paperbacks. It's more so like they can keep, there's a company called Nielsen that keeps track of like book sales and stuff. So Amazon will give one to you when you're publishing paperback. That's the only time you need it, but it's pretty much just saying, I would like an ISBN, and it goes, here is your ISBN. And it's that, yeah, and it's covered. Yeah, it's like a barcode essentially. Like if you flip over the book onto the back, it will have those numbers on it. But it's pretty much just that. Yeah, no problem. Any other questions on, yeah?
Not a question, but when the person who was encouraging me to start publishing, he said to me, don't do KDP because then you're kind of locked into that. So he said, do that and Smashwords. But experience has taught me that I haven't seen anything sell on Smashwords. So I think I was sacrificing the advantages of KDP to something that wasn't really producing it.
Yeah, that's pretty much my experience. I have a Smashwords and I used it for a bit, but Amazon's just dominated so much of the ebook space. It's really only iBooks that I'd want to get to publishing with Smashwords, but I had a similar experience. It's and if you keep it exclusive with Amazon, they do give you those like extra tools and stuff to market your book, which is great. Yeah.
Would you still recommend like KDP for children's picture books? Because what I find, I've been purchasing a lot of books from Amazon just to look at the quality, and there's a lot of like blank pages, and I don't like how that looks. So I don't know if your book has pictures. I'm assuming it doesn't have pictures. So is there something else that you recommend, or is that just the formatting that the person, the independent author, is doing, that's why there's a lot of like blank pages? It doesn't look like a traditional hardcover book.
Yeah, so that's typically on the author's end. There might be like one or two pages at the end that's just like a barcode typical thing that's just like in a lot of books. But there actually is, where is it? Let me see. They have their own thing that not a lot of people know about called Kindle Kids Book Creator. So if you are publishing children's books, this is definitely the way to go. You just hit download. They have one for Windows and one for Mac. And it specifically is made for children's books because they're kind of a bit different ball game than, writing a novel that's just text-based. So if you are writing children's books, this is typically for ebook only. Yes, this is for ebooks only. But for the print ones, it's typically what the author is doing, but so long as you don't, in your manuscript, have any empty pages, it'll come out just the way you want it. But if for making them ebook, the Kindle Kids Book Creator is definitely a really good tool. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Yes.
I might have missed this.
Yeah, no worries.
For the indie, or what you're doing now, will they have an editor for you, or it has to be edited already?
Yeah.
And then it will just be publishing it for you?
Yeah, they're just publishing it for you. So you can either edit it yourself, you can get someone else to edit it, hire a freelance editor. They don't provide an editor, but like once you upload your manuscript, then your manuscript's out there. You can always update it if you need to and such. But yeah, they just send it out there. You manage the editing, whether it's you or someone else doing it. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So another, I'll move back into the present. Oh, that just sent me to the very beginning. So I'll just tab through it on the side here. So Readsy is the other one that I use. So this is readsy.com. So this is a very underlooked website. I have not seen a lot of other people use it, but it's a very, very excellent site for helping with independent publishing. It's a nonprofit based out of Europe, aimed at helping writers and all creatives in the book industry, because they actually have parts of their website that show that it's like a marketplace for finding like editors and interior designers and cover designers and all of that, like professionals in their space. So it helps, them find, authors as clients. It helps authors find, editors and such. But what I use it for, there's a free section of the website that lets you format your interior for Amazon and other publishing platforms, chapter titles and everything, because my first book didn't have like the chapter titles indexed on Amazon, so you couldn't really just go chapter to chapter. This does all of that for you, copyright page, dedication, everything. So we'll take a look at that. So it's just readsy.com, and once you make an account, this is what it'll look like. It'll default to the marketplace page, but if you just tap books, that's where your books will be. And it's pretty simple. You'll just go create book, enter your book title. I'll use that one I was talking about earlier. And you hit create, and it'll appear right there. Once you click that, it'll open editor.readsy.com. So sometimes it takes a little while. You'll tap in it again, and it'll take a little to load. It's just got a lot of tools, so it takes a little bit to load sometimes, but just like a couple seconds and stuff. And yeah, you can use it to write. I write everything on Google Docs, but once you have your book written, you could just paste all of your text right in here. So I'm just going to write something there. You can fill in chapters as whatever you want. So I'm doing by character name. So for this book, the main character's name is Apollo, so I differentiate chapters by that. And if you want to add another chapter, you just hit in that upper left-hand corner, add, and then press add new chapter and another new chapter. And then here it'll keep all of your chapters in the table of contents. If you press edit, you can add any of these things. So typically I add in a dedication to dedicate my book to people. Sometimes I'll put a forward in if I want to say something before the book starts. And then you press done. Under the copyright page, this is where you can put all of your stuff. So publisher name, if you want to have one, any ISBNs, so I just put in my print one, year of publication, etc. You can choose any of these clauses. It's already pre-written for you. So like I do this one, this book's an entirely work of fiction, the external content one. I pretty much just check all of these off. Just, it covers you, so to make sure that everything's all set copyright-wise. And then back matter, if you press that on the side, under edit, you can turn on any of those things. So you can do about the author and also by. And so when you click into that, you can add an image, social media links, anything like that. And then you can also put in your books for also by. And the very handy thing about this is that once it's done, you just press export book. It's that download button over here. And takes a second. But as you can see, it's got EPUB and PDF. So print-ready PDF is what you would use for print books, because they just want you to have the perfectly formatted interior. EPUB is just that flexible ebook design, so people can enlarge the text, make the text smaller, hyperlink to everything. But it does all of that for you. So if you want to hide the chapter numbers, you can, all of that. Pick your trim size of your book, whatever you're using on Amazon. I use 5x8 and going forward now. That's just my particular favorite. If you're doing 6x9, whatever your book sizes, you do that, and you would just print export book, and it would download a copy of your files right to your computer, and your interior is done. So you just put your text in, and it handles all of the interior, making sure your book text is inside the margins where nothing's going to get cut off. It does the ebook for you, so it's very I tell people to use, if they're publishing, use this tool because it is by far the best I've seen for making the interior of your book manuscript to upload. Any questions on Readsy, the tool I just mentioned?
Sorry, did you say that's just for ebooks or for print?
Print books as well.
Oh.
I wouldn't recommend it for like books with pictures because I haven't tried that, but it is very useful for any other books in print. So I use it for print and ebook myself. But yeah, this does the, if you do print, you would just want to select PDF. And if you do ebook, you would just want to select the EPUB one. So basically when you're on this page, you just download twice, but change that option. And it'll take all of that same book file and make sure it's published in both, it's exported in both formats for you to publish in ebook and in print. Yeah.
You don't write right on here. You write and have your thought processes on Google Slides, you said? And then
Yeah, yeah.
on here.
Yeah, I write everything on Google Docs. I edit on Google Docs. I do everything on there. Yeah, you can write on here, and I've seen some people do that, but I just like that Google's Google. They're established. If any of their servers go down, they've got backups kind of thing. I know Readsy's a very good website, but Google's like pretty dominant in the tech space, so I trust Google to have my files. So I write everything on Google Docs, but then like each chapter, I'll just copy and paste from my Google Doc into Readsy. And it's like a little tedious in the sense of like copy, paste, but it only takes like half hour tops. But yeah, I'd say write in something else and then paste it into here. Any other questions? No, okay. So then the last tool is, let me see, is Canva. So a lot of people have started to hear of Canva by now, online graphic design service, but it's also a really great cover creator. I use it a lot for a lot of different things. While I have my brother do my covers now, it's what I use to create my first covers, and you just sign up for an account on canva.com, and it'll ask you what you want to create, and it's great because they have Kindle covers. If you just type in Kindle cover, it'll come up with, right here, a bunch of suggested templates that you can put your own, you can change the text on them, you can go in and put, your own images you want. So I think I have on here one where I did that. Yeah, so I'm writing this like Mitch Albom type novel. And so this is all of what I did. This is my book's cover, but I went and I got a separate image and I put that in. I went on the text, and it's very easy. You would just, if you want to change the font, you just click here, and up here you can change it to whatever font you would like. You can adjust the size. You can move it around. And then over here on uploads, that's where you could drag and drop an image in. So if I wanted to drag that in, it'll give you an idea of what it'll look like. But it's a very simple and easy to use. I'd recommend it for Kindle covers more than I would for print, just because KDP will give you a print cover template that will help you line everything up, but it's a little bit difficult to like finagle through that without Photoshop. But if you're making a Kindle cover, I would definitely recommend Canva. It's a very useful tool. It's what I used. It's possible to do with paperback covers, but typically with covers, unfortunately, the whole wisdom of don't judge a book by its cover isn't really true in the book industry. People judge books by their covers, so definitely worth investing in a good cover. But yeah, any questions on Canva that I just mentioned? No questions? Okay. So before we do a Q&A, just some common questions I get that I figured I'd run through. How much does indie publishing cost? Like I said, it varies, but it can be done for nothing. My first book was published on $0, other than buying a proof copy of my book. Editing and cover design services can cost you, as well as ad campaigns. You'll like pay by click, like 30 cents-ish, 50 cents-ish. But the actual cost of publishing should always be free. Companies make their money off of royalty cuts. So as I mentioned earlier, publishing should always be free. How much work is it? It very much depends on the length of your book. While juggling school and activities, my average time to market is about 1 to 2 years. But it can be longer if what you're writing is longer. Like I'm working on a science fiction series right now, so My books that I just published are 20,000 words. These ones are looking at being closer to 80,000, 100,000. So definitely takes a little bit longer. Just depends on your speed, how much time you have, what you're balancing in your schedule. But the actual publication process is shorter, as you saw. You just type all of your stuff in and upload it. So like my last book, once I had my interior and cover uploaded, I set it to pre-order and it was out to market in a week, which was great. How do I do marketing? This could be a whole nother presentation of itself, but like I mentioned, Amazon's great for capturing a captive audience. Facebook is good for building up your name. And I also do like in-person events like this. I've done craft fairs, social media, alumni networks. But a lot of my marketing is ad-driven because like I said, it's a warm audience, it's a captive audience. People are already looking to buy books. So if you're running ads where people are buying books, that's great if you're looking to get sales for your book. And yeah, any questions you guys have, I'll open it up and be happy to answer them. So do you guys have any questions on anything that I've discussed? Anything you wanted to ask? Yeah.
You are very informative.
Thank you so much.
Are you open for questions when, like if we're, working on our books?
Yeah.
And we had a question?
Yeah.
Would you be open to answering them?
Absolutely, yeah. I have my website, it's tannerwalling.weebly.com. If you just search my name up, it'll come up and I'll have a contact form there for people to, contact. Yeah. Any other questions?
Just a question about your personal writing.
Yeah.
This new series you're starting on, that's more geared to older young adults now?
Yeah, like teenagers, and I guess 80% of the young adult readers now, funnily enough, are adults. But yeah, I'm writing like a teen young adult science fiction epic series. So it's kind of like I'm mixing a lot of genres in. So there's some Dune inspiration, there's some Star Wars inspiration, there's a lot of inspiration from Neil Schusterman and Marie Lu, who are two other young adult authors I read. So it's kind of like a sci-fi epic mixed with a dystopian, and then there's like lots of different like the religious and philosophical themes. So kind of putting a lot of things together. But that's what I'm working on next. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you working on something like similar or?
I'm not a writer actually.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Just learn about the process.
Sure. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming then. Any other questions? All right. If you guys don't mind, if you have a phone on you, if you could just scan this QR code, it's a feedback form for my capstone project, just to get feedback on what worked, what, you might want more information on. But yeah, just for like my capstone assignment, if you could fill out the quick, feedback form, I'd really appreciate it. And then, yeah, that's all I have. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.